Joe Rogan has just released a bomb on his last program. According to him, Diddy investigations are just starting, and now the case has taken an even greater proportion. Rogan has revealed 8 celebrity names that, according to internal sources, are completely linked to the scandal. And the worst part, according to Rogan, these Hollywood stars have participated in secret events, closed business behind the scenes, and even helped to cover up certain truths that are now surfaced. Diddy may just be the tip of the iceberg, and these celebrities may be about to fall together with him. Want to know who they are and how they are involved? So stay until the end, because this story can change Hollywood forever. Joe Rogan's account begins as follows. Dude, this story gets weaker and weaker. I was talking to some middle people, and what they told me about Diddy and Jay-Z made me think. You already realized how these guys are always at the center of the biggest movements of industry. They are not just musicians, they are strategists, guys who have been in the game for decades and know exactly how the machine works. Jay-Z and Diddy have always been close, not just friends, but business partners, connected in a way that goes beyond what we see on the surface. And the question is, Diddy is being investigated by a lot of things now, and the name of Jay-Z appears behind the scenes of these conversations. Think with me. Jay-Z is not just an artist, he is a billionaire with an empire that includes fashion, sports, technology, and of course the music industry. And Diddy, well, Diddy always had this reputation for being a guy who knows the darkest secrets of Hollywood. Now there are people saying that Jay-Z was part of a closed circle where high-level agreements happened, politics mingled. The point is that if Diddy is really involved in these obscure schemes, it makes sense that Jay-Z knew, right? I mean, they grew together in the industry, they helped build empires. I'm not saying that Jay-Z did something illegal, but if you're so close to someone being investigated for suspicious activities, at least you know something. And there is something else. Have you noticed how Jay-Z always seems to escape great controversies? If this change, Jay-Z is moving away from Diddy to avoid being dragged together, it already says a lot. Look, I'm not stating anything, but when you start connecting the points, it's hard to ignore that Jay-Z may be closer to this scandal than we think. Now the question is, how far does it go? Important, is Jay-Z in the sights of investigations too? Man, this story goes deep than we imagine, and one of the names that started to appear in the talks about Diddy is none other than Usher. Now, what intrigues me is not just the connection between them, but what had happened back there in the 1990s when Usher was still a teenager. If you don't know, Usher was practically shaped by Diddy early in his career. When he was only 13 or 14, his mother sent him to live with Diddy in New York. Yes, man, a 13-year-old living with one of the most influential entrepreneurs, and from what we are discovering now, perhaps one of the most problematic of the music industry. This already raises a lot of questions, right? Now, this is where things get strange. In some old interviews, Usher mentioned that he saw crazy things while living with Diddy, but he never said exactly what. He only gave these enigmatic answers, laughing, distracting, as if it was uncomfortable talking openly about what was going on. But why a teenager would be in the midst of parties and events full of adults, beverages and what is known to, right? And there is more. For years, there were rumors about the kind of parties that Diddy organized, private events where celebrities and powerful figures of industry were without the presence of the media. The question that needs to be asked is, Usher witnessed something he doesn't. Should he? Most interesting is that Usher never completely cut her ties with Diddy. They still collaborated several times after that, and Usher has become a giant star on her own. But think to me, if Diddy is now under scrutinium, and if these investigations really they are in depth, Usher can end up being called to testify. He can be one of the few people who really know what happened in these circles closed in the 1990s. And if he decides to speak, man, this can change everything. What I keep asking myself is, will Usher try to distance himself from all this, or does he have more information than we think? Because man, when you start calling the points, this story is no longer being only coincidence. Dude, if there is one thing we know about Kanye West, is that he says what he thinks. And sometimes he talks too much. And now, with all these investigations about Diddy, some people are starting to ask, it will be what Kanye has tried to warn us about it before. Look at the connection. Kanye and Diddy were close. They already collaborated musically, attended the same circles, participated in the same parties. But at one point, Kanye began to expose certain truths about Hollywood, about the music industry, about the elite. And from there, it was only slope below. And now here's an interesting question. Was Kanye exposed to some of the things that are being investigated about Diddy? Because man, he has already made bizarre statements about how the industry is controlled by a select group of people, how there exist secrets that the audience will never know, and guess what, he always talks about Diddy with a strange tone, as if there was something not said there. Remember when Kanye posted that message print that you exchanged with Diddy? He basically said Diddy was part of a larger system and that he would no longer obey anyone. Diddy replied trying to control the situation, but Kanye didn't go back. How soon after that Kanye lost everything. Now, if Diddy investigations are really warming, it may be that Kanye is more involved than we think. Maybe he was an insider who saw too much and tried to alert the world, but was discredited before he could cause real damage. Or perhaps he still has information that can explode this story for good. What makes me curious is, will Kanye say something now? Will he finally let go of everything he knows? Because if he has evidence or testimonies about Diddy and this investigation continues to grow, man, this can be a divider of Hollywood waters. Dude, Leonardo DiCaprio has always had a free pass in the most exclusive circles of Hollywood. He is one of the few guys who seem to navigate between billionaires, politicians, and entertainment tycoon without anyone questioning anything. But when you start connecting the points between Diddy and that kind of elite, things start to stay interesting. Let's think here. Leo is not just a successful actor. He has connections with some of the most influential people on the planet. We are talking about entrepreneurs, princes, bankers. And of course, he was always seen attending private parties organized by people as Diddy. Now, with Diddy at the center of this investigation, what really happened in these events? Of the curtains, and where some bizarre stories begin to emerge. Here is what intrigues me. DiCaprio has always kept this image of activist, defender of the environment, man good people. But at the same time, he is constantly involved with billionaires who, let's be honest, do not have exactly the best moral history. Do you think he has never seen anything suspicious? And there is something else. When we start looking at certain Hollywood-linked financial schemes, some people say Leo may have been close to operations that are now being re-examined. He has had associations with powerful figures who were investigated for money laundering, dark funds, and political plots now. Imagine if Diddy was part of this type of operation, and Leo, even indirectly. Did you know of something? I'm not saying that he is involved, but think to me. If you are always at high-level parties, surrounded by the most influential people in the world, and now these people are being investigated, at the very least, this is something that raises suspicions. What did Leo see? And more importantly, if Hollywood is really facing a collapse because of these investigations, is Leo saved, or is his name dragged for this mud too? Dude, this is one of those stories that look like movie script. Diddy and 50 Cent have been rivals for years. Everyone has known this. They have been changing barbs, teasing themselves. 50 Cent loves to expose Diddy in a way that no one else has courage to do. But what few people realize is that despite the rivalry, 50 can be one of the few guys who really know what is happening behind the curtains. If you come back some 50 Cent interviews and posts, you will realize that he has insinuated several times that Diddy has a dark side that the audience does not know. He has talked about Diddy's parties, about the strange schemes that happened. There is even a video of him saying that Diddy tried to take him to one of the private events, and the reaction of the 50 was just laughing and saying, "No, thanks," something that made you want to maintain distance. And now comes the interesting part. 50 Cent has always had this tough face stance, but he's also a strategist. He knows when to release information and when to hold on. But with this research on Diddy warming up, 50 will finally play everything in fan. And there are more. Some sources suggest that Diddy and 50 Cent were not just rivals in music, but that they were on opposite sides of much larger disputes, involving millionaire businesses, political alliances, and even control over certain parts of the music industry. Was this rivalry just about rap? Or was something much deeper happening behind the scenes? And look what a coincidence. Whenever 50 Cent starts talking too much about Diddy, something happens to get the spotlight on this subject. Sometimes it's a new bullshit, sometimes it's a scandal involving another celebrity. May he go too much in this story, and now that Diddy is in the mirror, will 50 centrally reveal everything? Because man, if he decides to talk, that may be the final piece of the puzzle that exposes this whole network. Dude, this is a connection that a lot of people are not paying attention, but it can be much larger than we imagined. Rihanna has always been seen as an independent artist who built her empire with a lot of effort, and that's true. But what some people forget is that at the beginning of her career, she was very close to Diddy, and some figures that are now being investigated. Now, think to me, the music industry is a power game. And when Rihanna was emerging, Diddy was already one of the most influential people in the field. He controlled a lot of what happened behind the scenes, and it was the type who pulled the strings, deciding who grew up and who disappeared. And man, she was in events organized by him, attended her circles, and for a while seemed to be protected by some of the same people who are now in the sights of these investigations. What makes me think is this. Rihanna distanced herself from this medium after a while. She built her mark, got billionaire, and today we rarely see her involved in these closed industry events. Did she see something and decided to walk away? Or did she have to cut certain ties to avoid being pulled into the mud? Is there something else? Remember her bullshit with Chris Brown? That was a great scandal at the time. And a lot of people say it wasn't just an isolated case of domestic violence. Some sources say there were pressures from within the industry so that certain stories they didn't come to light, and some of these pressures came exactly from this circle that Diddy was part. And now that Diddy is being investigated, will she be dragged to this story in any way? Because man, when you start to see patterns, to understand who was connected to whom, you realize that no one gets to the top without going through these backstage. The big question is, Rihanna just went through this, or does she have guarded secrets that can be revealed now? In any case, it can end up being cited, even as a witness, and depending on what she knows, it can completely change the narrative of this investigation. Dude, we need to talk about what is happening to Will Smith. Everyone remembers the slap at Chris Rock, right? That was an insane moment, but what if I said you can have much more behind it than just a badly received joke? Let's go to the facts. Will Smith is one of Hollywood's most successful actors, has always had this good face, perfect family, an untouchable star. But in recent years, this facade began to crumble. First came the rumors about your marriage to Jada Pinkett Smith, and man, these stories range from relationships open to secret Hollywood parties. Diddy is known for organizing some of the most exclusive parties and, according to some sources, more bizarre from industry. And Will Smith for years was close to this circle. So the question is, does he participate in things that are now coming out? Another curious thing, after Will Smith slapped the Oscar, his career collapsed in a kind of suspicious way. Hollywood practically exiled him. And remember how some people said it looked like a mental collapse, as if he was holding something a long time ago and simply exploded. We have seen this happen before. When certain celebrities start to get out of place publicly, sometimes it is not just because of personal problems. Sometimes there is something behind the scenes, a pressure to keep buried secrets. And now that Diddy is being investigated, can Will Smith end up being pulled to this story? What really intrigues me is, will this scandal make Will Smith finally talk about what really happens at these elite parties? Because if he opens his mouth, man, this can be one of the greatest Hollywood collapses we've ever seen.